The Hive fleets. Drifting through the void come star-eclipsing shoals of immense creatures whose forms bristle with spines and feeder tendrils. Each of these living vessels is host to thousands upon thousands of dormant warrior forms ready to wake from their slumber when the Hive fleet locates its next meal. The Tyranids have no home world and no domain save their swiftly ravaged planetary hunting grounds. They are a space-born race, spreading inward from the fringes of the galaxy like an incurable virus. They travel in Hive fleets, shoals of gigantic bioships that also serve as their spawning grounds. The first of these Hive fleets encountered by the Imperium was codenamed Behemoth, and it struck the realm of Ultramar like a battering ram. Behemoth caused terrible destruction before it was exterminated by the combined efforts of the Ultramarines and the Imperial Navy. At that time, the Imperium dared to hope that the Hive fleet was an isolated phenomenon, a Xenos aberration that had been dealt with and would not be seen again. That hope was dashed with the arrival of Hive Fleet Kraken and many other Hive fleets that have followed since, each adapting in response to the successes and failures of those that came before. Even when the backbone of a Hive fleet is broken, the threat is not averted. Hive Fleet Kraken may have been shattered at horrific cost, but the tendrils of its splinter fleets were dispersed across the galaxy like numberless spores. Hive Fleet Leviathan, meanwhile, learned still further from the failures of its predecessors. It surged into the galaxy from many points simultaneously, pushing not just inward from the fringes, but upwards from below the galactic plane. Where once the Tyranids could be considered a slow-moving and largely distant threat, now they can strike anywhere, at any time. Understandably, given the apparent autonomy of the Hive fleets, many Magos biologists have classified them as subcategories of their species, each competing for resources. The truth is far more unsettling. Each fleet is but one element of a greater whole. Each warrior beast, feeder organism, and bioship is a single fragment of an unfathomably complex entity that stretches across the vast reaches of space. This sentience is known as the Hive mind. It is this Gestalt consciousness, still an utter mystery to the galaxy at large, that allows the Tyranids to coordinate their attacks. Every organism, from the tiny rippers that devour biological matter of conquered worlds, to the colossal Tyrannofexes and Biotitans, is linked to the Hive mind. Unless impelled otherwise, these creatures follow a pattern of behavior befitting their function, though their actions are still driven by the will of the greater consciousness. Larger and more complex organisms like Tyranid warriors and Hive tyrants possess the ability to override the natural instincts of their swarm with a synaptic form of telepathy. Thus, despite their blunt predatory desires, Tyranid forces led by such creatures operate on a far more advanced strategic level, enacting tactical maneuvers every bit as canny as those of even the greatest generals. However, should one of these synapse creatures be slain, the link between individual organisms and the Hive mind is severed, disrupting the cohesion of the swarm and causing each creature to revert to its instinctual state. Observant enemies quickly learn to focus their fire upon the largest and most imposing beasts within a Tyranid swarm, noting the loss of unity that results from such kills. For this reason, Tyranid forces are often led by multiple synapse creatures that form a layered network of synaptic control, so if one of them falls, the Hive mind's influence remains strong. Swift adaptation to the tactics, the weapons, and even the psychology and physiology of their prey is the most terrifying feature of the Tyranids. The forces of the Hive fleets contain creatures specialized in every conceivable aspect of warfare, and the spawning chambers of each bioship can actively alter and replicate these organisms to suit the needs of any battle. A tactic that works once against the Tyranids will seldom prove successful in later campaigns, or even a later battle. For The hive mind learns with each encounter. Where concentrated firepower wipes out its swarms, the hive mind floods the battlefields with too many targets for its prey to kill, girds its beasts in thick plates of chitin, or sends monsters to tunnel underneath the enemy lines and burst up in their midst. Where the foe breaks the Tyranid swarms with armor and artillery, the hive mind deploys creatures whose excretions eat away at hulls and seal to poison the crew within, or else meets them with lumbering living tanks whose corrosive munitions and crushing claws make short work of vehicles. Should the prey seek to evade direct battle and orchestrate a hit-and-run war with the Tyranids, the hive mind sends creatures to devour and demolish the enemy's cover, dispatches winged swarms to tear aerial threats from the sky, and seeds the battlefield with camouflaged murder beasts that swiftly transform hunters to hunted. Thus far, it seems there is no obstacle the Hive fleet cannot overcome, and the only thing that truly stems the tide is the sacrifice of thousands upon thousands of lives, fed into the jaws of the beast in a desperate attempt to slow its progress. Amongst the numberless life forms linked to the hive mind, there exists a creature as old as the Tyranid race itself. It is a harbinger of ruin, a beast that has wrought untold carnage upon the galaxy, and has preyed upon civilizations beyond count. This legendary abomination is known by many names, but to those few in the Imperium who have witnessed its fury and lived, it is the Swarm Lord. Originally encountered by humanity during the First Tyrannic War, this ancient predator has appeared across the breadth of the galaxy, fighting for the different hive fleets over the course of centuries. The Swarm Lord is, to all intents and purposes, deathless, for its link to the hive mind transcends physical limitations. Should it be slain, the creature's consciousness is absorbed into the synaptic web, where it stays until its body is regrown once more. Thus, the Swarm Lord can be deployed by the hive mind all over the galaxy, wherever its endless reserves of cunning and tactical knowledge are most needed. So intelligent is this monster that at the Battle of Macragge, it was even able to outwit the Ultramarines, long considered one of the most tactically astute forces in the galaxy. Marinus Calgar himself was almost slain by the four-serrated bone sabers that the Swarm Lord wields with a skill adapted over eons of constant warfare. Hive Fleet Leviathan was the greatest Tyranid threat that the Imperium of Man ever encountered, a gathering of bioships so vast that even the attempts of the noble Blood Angels and their successor chapters could not halt its advance. Having consumed the biomass of human, orc and Eldari alike during its relentless advance across the galaxy, the largest tendril of Hive Fleet Leviathan was at the very height of its power, able to form new strategies and tactical counters at an exponential rate. Upon the Blood Angels' home world of Baal, Commander Dante devised a series of formidable defense fortifications and awaited Leviathan's arrival. When the Hive Fleet shadow finally fell upon Baal and her twin moons, bloody battle was joined. The first 19 waves of Tyranid warrior organisms, each larger than the last, were driven off at great cost to the Blood Angels and their successor allies. 5 chapter masters fell in that storm of bloodshed, and inch by torturous inch, the Space Marines were forced back into their fortress monastery where they prepared to make a defiant last stand. It was there, at that moment when all seemed lost, that the Cicatrix Maledictum, the Great Rift, tore open in the fabric of reality, and the foul etheric wind swept forth, blasting its way across war-torn Baal. Eventually the skies cleared in the stir, and the stars shone once more, and where Hive Fleet Leviathan had once orbited Baal and its moons, now an Imperial fleet was in its place. The reawakened Primarch of the Ultramarines, Reboot Gulliman, led a vengeful assault upon the disorganized remnants of the Tyranid swarms, and Baal was quickly scoured of the Xenos taint. Exactly what became of Leviathan remains a mystery, though upon the now barren and lifeless moons of Baal Prime, a clue was found. Millions upon millions of Xenos skulls piled high in the ancient 8-pillared symbol of the bloodthirster Kabhande, ancient nemesis of the Blood Angels. Leviathan's defeat came at great cost, and even then, the Hive Fleet still has many smaller tendrils coiling through the galaxy. Worse, This defeat has merely slowed the threat posed by the Tyranids, not defeated it. With each passing year, reports of new incursions arrive, as new Hive fleets thrust their tentacles out of the void. Hive Fleet Hydra skirts the galactic rim, biding its time as it gathers up the scattered splinter fleets of previous invasions. Scylla and Charybdis carve parallel paths through Segmentum's Pacificus and Solar, far too close to the Imperium's heartlands, whilst Hive Fleet Shumunga cuts its way down from the northern edge of the galaxy. Yet, the fear is that these are merely the vanguard of a far greater entity, the true form of the Hive mind, simply softening up the galaxy before it makes its presence known.